Welcome to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast, helping people take their leadership to the next level. Brought to you by Blackaby Ministries International.
Well, Richard.
Yes, Sam.
Good to see you again.
Well, good to see you.
Our listeners can't see this, but we've rearranged where we do the podcast. So our table is facing a different direction, and we've added a few.
We won't say we're
features.
leaning a little more to the right or the left now.
No, it's still.
We'll leave it up to the listeners.
Still straight down the middle, as always. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about the problem of evil or leadership and spiritual warfare.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting topic. You mentioned evil. Are you saying there's a difference when a leader is dealing with everyday problems, just regular issues and crises, and actual evil? And if so, how would you say there's a difference?
Sam, I think there is a difference. Leaders, of course, their job is to solve problems. And so not every problem is evil. It's just a problem. That's what leaders do. When you work with people and organizations, difficulties arise, challenges come up, and you overcome them. And that's just part of leading. It's nothing moral or bad. It's just things that just need to get worked out. But there is also a reality in our world that is just evil. It's destructive. It's intrusive. It can creep in and wreak havoc on people and organizations. And I think we've seen some of this just even as we watch the news and see these horrific shootings that take place, where people come in and are so filled with hatred and anger that they're just gunning down completely innocent people in a store or in a church or a bar or wherever, and just killing innocent people because they're so filled with rage and anger. And you look at that and you just say, that's not normal.
Yeah,
that's not what a normal human behavior. There's something that is taken over that person. There's something that has so deceived that person and so filled that person with evil thoughts that they're doing the unimaginable. And there are times when you look at something like that and you just say, how would a human being do that? Like, how could you walk into a store and just start shooting innocent people that are just stopping by to pick up a few groceries, and you're taking their life and showing no mercy? What is it that drives people to do such horrific things? And of course, not all evil leads to murder. Sometimes, though, I've led long enough and I've seen enough that you see certain things and say, what on earth was that person thinking? It might be a very, very gifted staff person that shows huge potential to become a vice president or maybe become the CEO at one point. Maybe an up-and-coming associate pastor that is beloved and having a great ministry, and then all of a sudden it comes out that they have all kinds of immorality in their life, or they're mistreating their spouse at home, or they're doing things that are illegal. They're embezzling funds, and you have to fire them, or maybe even notify the police, and they're sent to jail. And you look at that and say, now, why would a person with all this talent and intelligence and charisma, all these possibilities, why would they just sink a hole in their own boat and sink their boat just needlessly? Like, they had a great marriage, they had a great family. Why would they just destroy all of that? Why would they destroy a reputation that they've taken 10, 20 years to build? And it makes no sense. You look at that and say, and how would they not think that they were not going to get caught? I think of like serial adulterers, and you think you cannot be that careless and that immoral and it not eventually be discovered. You know that it's going to be discovered, and when it is, you're going to lose your job, and you're going to lose your family. And why would you do that? You have so much good in your life, and it makes no sense at all. And anyone who's ever had to deal with that, as I have, where I've had to fire some of my best staff people, just simply because they did something so foolish, something so immoral, that had no choice. And sometimes they were some of my top performers. And you think, why would you do that? And you can only explain it by the fact that there is an evil force that is at work in this world to deceive people and to destroy people. There was a British journalist by the name of Malcolm Muggeridge that years ago worked for BBC, and he traveled the world. He was an atheist, or at least an agnostic. He wasn't a Christian. And but at one point, he saw so much evil that he could not account for. He could not just say that was just a bad decision or that was just a mistake. He saw just unmitigated, pure evil that would lead people to genocide, to lead people to cause all kinds of harm. And he realized that's not human. That there's some force that is driving human beings to do awful things that they would not on their own ever think to do. And so he basically came to realize there must be a devil of some sort that was a motivating force for evil. And only after he discovered that there had to be a devil that he began to notice it's also good. There's martyrs. There's people who lay their life down for others. And he began to realize, well, there's also good here. And that led him ultimately to a belief in God. But interestingly, kind of ironically, it was not until he came to a real firm recognition of evil that he then realized then there has to be a God. Kind of a funny way to find God. But so we want to talk about evil, and we don't want leaders to be caught off guard, because evil is different than just solving a problem. And, if it's just solving a problem, those can be fairly rational. A plus, B equals C. There's certain formulas you can follow if people are just doing the rational, normal thing. But evil is irrational. Evil is destructive. Evil tries to take down as many people as possible. And if you're not aware of that, you're going to be bewildered as a leader when things start going wrong in people and all of your normal efforts to solve the problem don't work.
Right. So we know the Bible says a few things about evil, about this topic. Could you maybe point our listeners to a few of those verses to help us better understand and tackle this issue?
Yeah, and this podcast will be a little bit different, because I just think in light of what's happening right now and what leaders face, I would encourage you at some point as a listener just to take some time to look at these verses, meditate upon them, and apply them to your setting. Let me give you about 4 passages that I think are very important to this. The first one, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Peter says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour." That's kind of a well-known passage, but I think one that you just have to keep coming back to.
Yeah.
It says the devil is like a roaring lion. By the way, that term roaring lion, lions don't roar all the time. When lions are on the hunt, they don't roar when they're on the hunt. When they're sneaking up on you, they're not roaring all the way, or else you'd be running the other direction. They don't roar until they're ready to pounce. That's actually the reason they roar is because they want to terrify you. You're sitting there at a water hole thinking all is fine. Suddenly there's this terrifying roar of a lion that terrifies you, and the next moment the lion is hurtling through the air right on top of you, and you're dead. If you hear the lion roar, it's too late. And so it says when the devil is seeking those he can destroy, he can devour. He's not just looking to give you a bad day. And I think that especially for Christian leaders, you need to understand that the devil is real, and he hates you. He hates you. He's not a rational person that just live and let live. He doesn't. It's not like you just leave him alone, he'll leave you alone. No, he wants to destroy you. And he wants to destroy your family, your marriage, your kids, your reputation. He wants to destroy any witness you might have for good, for Christ. Just understand that there is someone in this world who absolutely hates you and wants to destroy you. And that's just a reality. And so it says, be sober. Be vigilant. In other words, don't be caught by surprise. Don't kind of be careless and all of a sudden hear that lion roar and realize, oh no, it's too late. I've left myself vulnerable. Now I'm going to be attacked all out. And so that's one great verse. Another key verse, of course, is Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 to 12. And Paul says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord. And but I tell you what, you need to underline that phrase.
Yeah.
Be strong in the Lord. Just be so full of the Lord that you have all of his strength and in the power of his might. And by the way, I hear some people talk like, I'm just going to kick the devil's rear end all the way around the block and back, and let's just go beat up the devil. Well, that can be a dangerous misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That's like taking on a roaring lion in your own strength. You're not going to beat the devil in your strength. You'll only beat him in God's strength.
Yeah.
So it says, be strong in the Lord, not in yourself, but in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God. And that word whole, of course, is very important. Don't put on some of the armor because the devil has been at this a long time. He takes one look at you and he sees where you're missing armor. He sees the weak link. You only have to have one weak spot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could have 95% of your body and life and your leadership covered in armor. But if you got 5% that's vulnerable, that's all it takes to take you down. So put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And again, the wiles, it's not, you think you talk about an all-out missile attack, a full, cannonade barrage.
Head on.
Like an all-out charge straight at you, but it says you got to stand against the wiles.
Yeah, he doesn't always storm the beach fronts.
Yeah, and it's his cunning, his deception, his lies that you have to stand firm against, as we'll see in another verse in a moment. But for it says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. And one thing my dad taught me early on as I was a pastor, he said, never forget who the enemy is. And he said, the people are never the enemy. The people are never the enemy. Now, there would be some people who look like the enemy. They're criticizing me, they're opposing me, they're threatening me. They look like enemies to me. But he would say, no, they're tools of the enemy. They have believed lies of the enemy. They're hurting and have been wounded by the enemy themselves, and now they're striking out. But they're not the ultimate enemy. If you don't even know who your enemy really is, you're going to keep shooting at the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You're going to defend yourself against the wrong people. And so Paul just says, put on all the armor, because the devil is going to be having all kinds of wiles to take you down, and be prepared because you could be attacked at any moment, and just know who the enemy is and whose strength it'll be that defeats the enemy. And then just two other verses just to put out on the table. One is James chapter 4, verse 7. And there, James says, and so we've kind of covered Peter and Paul. We're going to get to James. He says, therefore, submit to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And I've always said the best means of spiritual warfare is obedience to God. We often think about, how do I attack Satan? I'd say don't focus on Satan. I know a lot of Christians who do that. They literally talk more about the devil than they talk about Jesus. Every morning it's about how we're going to take on the devil, how we're going to defend ourselves against his assaults. But I found the best way to engage in spiritual warfare is just obey everything God tells you to do. And so James begins by saying, therefore submit to God. Just do his will. Just trust. Let him figure out how to do the fight, how the battle will be waged. And then it says, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And of course, that's because the devil is a liar. He's way more talk than he is bite. He's going to try to deceive you, and he's cunning, and he's the father of lies. So, but when you stand firm, then he will flee from you. And we talked about this the other day, but I've seen this sometimes, and of course every case is unique, but sometimes I hear people that are being threatened. Maybe it's a pastor in a church, and a couple of deacons have come and said, "There's a bunch of people all think you should leave, and they're really upset, and it just will go easier on you if you just, if you don't want trouble, just resign and go away." And so many times that's what we do. It sounds awful. We second guess ourselves. Maybe I haven't been leading like I should. Maybe things aren't as good as I thought they were. Maybe I should just go away.
Yeah.
But oftentimes those are just the wiles of the devil. Those are just lies. And if you believe the lie, then he'll get you to go away. He'll defeat you. But if you resist the devil, if you stand firm, if you say, "I'm not going anywhere," this is where God, I always wonder when people, especially pastors who leave a church when things get difficult, one of the questions I always ask them is, well, did God lead you to be at this church? And they say, yeah, this was God's will to come here. I now ask, well, did God know that there was going to be trouble when he led you here? Why is it that now that there's trouble, you think it's God's will to leave? I think you believed a lie. Maybe God was wanting you to be here so that you could finally rid this place of some carnal, ungodly, wicked people. But to do that, you've got to stand firm and resist what the devil brings at you, the lies he brings to you. If you believe his lies, then he's got you, and you'll probably leave and be defeated, and he'll keep control. Which is really the last verse. I've already referred to it, but John 8, verse 44, it says, he's talking to the Pharisees, Jesus is, and he says, "You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it." He's the father of lies, and that is his number one tool. And if you've ever led anything for very long, you probably have had to deal with lies, rumors, gossip, people misrepresenting you and your motives. And I know Richard said this, but he really just wants control. He really just wants his way. Yeah. He just wants to bring relatives in. He just wants to get more money. He just wants this. He wants that. And when you, in good conscience, are trying to do all you can to lead your organization, and then people lie about you, I'll tell you what drives you crazy. And you just think, where is this lie coming from? I've been here now 10 years, and I've done all kinds of stuff to make this place better. After 10 years, they still are lying about my motives and where I'm taking this place. And you'll shake your head and say, where did these lies come from? I've been straightforward all this time. I've always told the truth. Why are there still lies? Well, it's because Satan is the father of lies. And anytime you start seeing lies and untruths spreading in an organization that you lead, whether it's your family, I know people that their kids go off the tracks, and all of a sudden one of their kids is just alienated from them. And whenever I see a person that's just really upset, if I see someone that all of a sudden is alienated from me, one of my first thoughts is, what lies have they believed? This person has obviously believed a lie, because sometimes I've had people get upset with me, and I know full well that I've not done anything to justify that. I've not done anything to harm them. I've not said anything unkind. I've not treated them unfairly. And yet they're angry with me. And my first question is, what lie have they believed? They believed a lie. Because they can't just go out and sometimes you'll sit down with those people and say, well, what did I say that has made you so upset? Well, oftentimes, I don't want to talk about that, or I don't want to get into it, or they don't want to meet with you at all. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, don't we just want to get to the bottom of this? Don't we want to get to the truth of the matter? And the fact is that when a lie gets a stronghold, a foothold into a person, into an organization, it can be very difficult to weed out that lie. Because Satan is the father of lies. It's the number one way he gets his work done. And so if you suddenly find yourself in a conflict with someone, or someone is storming in your office door upset, and you, for the life of you, can't imagine why, it may well be that the father of lies has gotten into someone's head, convinced them of something that wasn't true, and now you've got a very difficult challenge to share the kind of truth that could set someone free. So those are 4 great verses. You got Peter, you got Paul, you got James, you got John, all of them talking about the pervasive nature of evil, that if you have not had to deal with it yet as a leader, whether it's in your family, in your organization, in your church, you will face that. And so better to be prepared than to be caught by surprise and have that lion roaring just as it's leaping on you.
Well, these are great verses to meditate on. So we'll take a quick break here and then we'll wrap up.
Twice a year, Blackaby Ministries hosts a spiritual leadership coaching workshop in the Atlanta area. The focus of this workshop is learning how to ask the right questions to help move people onto God's agenda. The next workshop is November 4th through 6th, and registration is open now. The early bird rate is available until October 1st, and space is limited. To find out more and to register, visit blackabycoaching.org. Links will be in the show notes.
Well, Richard, we've seen what the Bible has to say, at least some of what the Bible has to say about evil, the problem of evil, how to handle that. And so I guess just in closing, how, with these verses and with what you know, what would you tell a leader in helping them discern between just an everyday problem or issue and then knowing that, okay, no, this is much more than just, the copier broke down, you know, and we've got to fix it. Like, how would you help them discern that?
There's the evil has a whole other level to it. Evil doesn't want a solution. Problems are just inviting you to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
This is broken down. We've had a budget shortfall. We've got a staff person that's underperforming. Okay, well, there are solutions to things like that. Yeah. And oftentimes well-meaning, rational people, when you sit down and you present a solution, well, okay, good. That'll work. Yeah, that solves the problem. Let's move on. Great. But then you have things where it's underlying. Sometimes it's you can sense hostility, you can sense distrust, but you can't get to the root of it. And you may sit down and say, "Hey, is there something wrong?" No, everything's fine. But it's not. Or you see an irrational anger, and I've had those times where I've maybe talked for an hour, 2 hours, trying to cover all the waterfront, being willing to do whatever it takes to make sure everything. Okay, are we fine now? And yet you think, you know what? No, because there seems to be something involved here that does not want to be fine, does not want to be reconciled, does not want you to solve this problem. There's something below the surface that's a lot more destructive and evil than just having a good talk and working things out. And when that kind of stuff happens, that tells me, this isn't just a normal problem. There's evil at work here, trying to destroy this person, destroy our organization, destroy my relationship with this person. And so I need to treat it as evil. And not just sort of blithely kind of think, oh yeah, well, I solve problems all the time. We'll just have a good face-to-face here. Well, I'll take this person for a lunch meeting and we'll be friends again. No, sometimes there's more to it than that. And you need to recognize, is this a normal problem, or is there a pervasive resistance to solutions? Is there an anger here that's irrational? It's not based on truth, on facts. Is there a hostility? Is there a destructiveness here that is like a kamikaze pilot that is just determined either to destroy my staff person or destroy the organization, but nothing less than that will do? Then I'm alerted, okay, we've got a more serious issue here, an issue of evil that is going to need to be rooted out.
Yeah, and I think it seems like a lot of times it's just far more nebulous, the root cause. Yeah,
which drives the leader crazy.
Right.
Because you just can't. You try to put your finger on it just to solve it, and you can't. Yeah, you can't do that.
So I guess one last question would be, how can leaders, protect themselves so they're not victimized by evil as they seek to lead their organization?
Yeah, and a couple of just practical things to say. One would be, just remember, spiritual warfare is real. As Peter said, the devil comes around like a roaring lion, just prowling about, looking for someone to destroy.
Yeah.
Know that that's true, so that you're not caught by surprise. And secondly, watch for red flags. Take red flags seriously. When someone starts to act, they've always come into a meeting with you with a smile on their face. They've always been pleasant, always open. But there seems to be something has entered into their spirit that wasn't there before. There's a resistance I haven't seen before. They're not smiling. They seem like they've got anger just under the surface. There's something has crept into their life, their heart, their mind. There may be a lie that they believe that is just churning them up inside. And so when I was a younger leader, I used to blow stuff like that off and just say, well, hey, they've got to be responsible for their own attitude, or hey, I've done nothing wrong, and so I'm not going to waste a lot of time worrying about that. But boy, you have a few of those things blow up in your face, and you start to realize, no, the thing about evil is it just keeps, it is truly like a cancer, that it just keeps spreading if left unchecked. And so I just find with problems in general, but certainly with evil, is the sooner you get on it, the better. And thoroughly and radically root it out. You can't compromise with evil. You can't work out a truce with evil. There's just a one winner take all with evil. You're either going to root out the evil, or it's going to just persistently keep nagging away at you until it finally drives you off. But so watch those. But I wrote a blog recently on my blog site. If the listeners aren't aware of that, I've got a blog site just at richardblackaby.com, where I write on family and leadership and other things, and wrote a blog recently, and I think we had a podcast on just don't blame your poor leadership on spiritual warfare. I would do your homework, and just because you've got problems doesn't mean it's the devil. It might mean that you're leading poorly, and if you just rose up and led and dealt with problems and dealt with issues, you wouldn't have so many issues multiplying in your ministry, or your leadership. So I would take an inventory and say, now, are these problems a result of evil that has crept in, and it's a different level, or are these just multiplying problems that come because I've neglected my job? I've not addressed issues. There were all kinds of red flags out there that I should have gotten on, but I haven't. Emails I haven't answered, upset people I haven't met with, and now I've got just a mess. Well, make sure you don't assume that every problem is the devil.
Right. The
problem might be your poor leadership. You need to step it up. So find out what that is. And then just one or two other ones I would say is surround yourself with truth. And I really can't emphasize that enough. Surround yourself and your leadership with truth. John 8:32, Jesus said, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth is power. The truth is the antidote to lies. And if you're a leader, and I've seen so many leaders who have dealt with this, where there's smear campaigns, there's gossip campaigns, and people are lying. Of course, that's modern politics today. Modern politics is not build a case for yourself. It is tear the other person down. If you can just discredit them, lie about their character, tear them down, smear them, just throw all kinds of lies at them in public and hope a few of them just kind of stick in the public's eyes. And so that's modern politics today. And so what I found is you need to surround yourself with truth. And so what I mean by that, one is that's why you need to be a good communicator. Because if I know leaders who don't communicate well down the ranks of what they're doing. So if you're not communicating, guess what happens? Everybody's speculating. And people are filling in the blanks. And they're saying, well, the reason that Sam's not saying anything is because he's getting ready to sell the company, or he's getting ready to do some layoffs, or he's getting ready to change this whole division out, and all these rumors are flying, and people are getting upset and agitated, and you look at all this stuff going on, and you say, well, why is there so much gossip? Why are there so many lies going about? Why are people upset? Well, because you haven't been telling enough of the truth. The truth dispels lies. So if you're regularly telling people the truth, you're regularly telling them what is going on, what you are thinking, what you are intending, well, it's a lot harder for lies to get a foothold. Now, it can still lie about what you're saying. They can still try to challenge it, but it's much harder for lies to take the truth head on. And so I just find lots of communication, lots of telling the truth. And there are times where you may just have to, sometimes I've found that someone will speak a lie, and you don't want to necessarily have to run around after every critic and every time someone says something to call a staff meeting and renounce that.
Yeah.
But there are times where I think you do have to just take on a lie head on and say, some of you may have heard this. I would hate for any of you to be misled. Let me just very clearly tell you that is not true. This is what the truth is. Here's the facts. Here's what has happened. And let me just, and whoever is telling you these things, they're lying to you. And by the way, I'd like to know who is telling you those things. Sometimes you just have to get on a hunt for untruth and just say, you know what, we're our organization, our family, our church, we operate on truth, not lies. And so when I find someone spreading lies, we will confront that, because that's just not acceptable. You're welcome to share an opinion, but when you start spreading untruth, then we'll have to deal with that. And so truth is your greatest weapon against the father of lies.
Yeah.
So just keep sharing truth and surround yourself with people that, I tell you what, when you deal with evil, you need people praying for you. You need spiritual coverage. You need spiritual protection. You need God to be your shield. And so get people around you and say, hey, you know what? I'm dealing with beyond just a normal leadership problem right now. I'm dealing with evil. And the only way to deal with evil is to have lots of people praying and having spiritual protection and guidance. I need counsel so that I can't afford a weak spot, a blind spot right now. So if you see something in my own attitude that's not right, then I need the protection. So sadly, that is the world in which we live. A world in which evil is alive and well and prowling about. You can't be caught by surprise by it. You have to pretty well expect that if you're doing anything well that leads